Birth into silence. A child born into slavery during the Shang or Zhou dynasties was classified as base person. If both parents were slaves, the child inherited their status automatically. There was no ceremony, no naming ritual, no celebration, only the quiet assignment of a life beneath the law. If the child was born from war captives or sold by impoverished parents, their entry into slavery was abrupt and brutal. They might be branded, registered, or handed over to a noble household or government project. Their name might not be recorded. Their identity was defined by ownership. From the moment they opened their eyes, they were not seen as a person, but as property. Childhood. Obedience over innocence. By age 6 or 7, the child would be put to work. In elite households, they might serve as domestic attendants, fetching water, sweeping floors, or caring for livestock. In harsher environments, they might be assigned to agricultural fields, canal digging, or even military camps. Education was forbidden. Play was rare. The child learned to obey, to endure, and to disappear when not needed. Punishment was swift and physical. There were no legal protections for slaves, and their suffering was invisible to the state. Girls faced an additional burden. Many were trained as concubines or sexual servants, especially in royal courts or among wealthy families. Their bodies were not their own, and their futures were tied to the whims of their masters. Adulthood, labor and loyalty. As the slave matured, their role became more specialized. Domestic slaves served in noble homes, cooking, cleaning, and attending to their masters. Some gained trust and were allowed to marry or raise children, though their offspring remained enslaved. Labor slaves worked in mines, fields, or construction. During the Qin dynasty, many were forced into massive public works projects like roads, canals, and parts of the Great Wall. These tasks were grueling, with long hours, minimal food, and constant danger. Slaves were often traded, gifted, or inherited. A change in master could mean a change in fate, sometimes for better, often for worse. Some slaves were treated with relative kindness, others with cruelty. But all lived under the shadow of ownership. Rare paths to change. Though rare, a few paths existed. Manumission. A master might free a slave for loyalty or exceptional service. This became more common during the Tang and Song dynasties, when economic growth reduced reliance on slave labor. Flight. Some slaves escaped, especially during times of war or famine. The Song dynasty's booming economy allowed runaways to blend into the peasant class. Elevation. In the Yuan and Qing dynasties, some slaves became bondsmen, personal retainers to powerful overlords. A few rose to command other slaves or influence court politics. But for most, these were distant dreams. The system was designed to keep them in place. Death. Unmarked and unmourned. Slaves rarely died with dignity. Their deaths were often unrecorded, their graves unmarked. If they died in service, their bodies might be buried on the edge of estates or burned without ceremony. In early dynasties like Shang, slaves were sometimes sacrificed in rituals, buried alive with their masters, or used in ancestral offerings. Their deaths were symbolic, not personal. There were no tombs, no poems, no legacy. Only silence. Legacy, echoes beneath the empire. Though slavery was officially abolished in 1910, its echoes lingered into the 20th century. The lives of ancient Chinese slaves were largely erased from history, overshadowed by emperors, scholars, and warriors. But they were there. In every brick laid, every meal served, every dynasty built, they were the silent foundation. Their story is not one of glory but of endurance. Not of triumph but of quiet humanity.